track. But in order to save time, he did not stop the train. Instead, he wanted to run down and adjust the track manually while the train was running at low speed. He thought he could make it in time, but it was only his thought, and this one small mistake will make him regret his life. Then he put the gear into coasting mode, but who would have thought? Not only was the gear not quite there, and he slid into full forward gear. Tom was just about to adjust the track. He didn't realize that the train was already moving at full speed. He was frightened and rushed to step on the track changing device, but it was already too late. He could only run after the train, but his size is too fat, so he fell to the ground. Instead of helping, the workers next to him laughed at his size. Apparently no one realized how serious the situation really was, and so a 13,000-ton unmanned train raced down the main railroad line. Anything in his way would be crushed. Tom rushed to report the crisis to the leadership. He also said that the speed of the train was at most 7 miles per hour. When the leader heard that the speed was so slow, he didn't give it a second thought. But no one expected the train to reach 70 miles per hour by now. What's more frightening is that, on the opposite side of the train there was a tourist train full of children traveling opposite. There was no time to evacuate the passengers. The two trains would collide head-on in a few minutes. When the leaders were informed of the real situation, everyone was stunned. The collision was imminent. The experienced old driver drove at full speed to the other track, and so the two cars passed each other. The children looked excitedly at the passing train, but they didn't know that they were just about to go to heaven. But the crisis had just begun. A runaway train loaded with nuclear bombs is on the tracks. It's racing down the main track at 333 miles per hour in unmanned mode. It's ramming down the tracks like a crab. The news quickly spread throughout the city. Major media outlets went to follow the TikTok in order to grab the headlines. The dispatch office saw the situation and quickly reported to the FBI. They suggested that the train should be slowed down, but it was rejected, because if the train derailed at this point, it would be extremely vulnerable to a nuclear explosion. This means that the entire city will be wiped out by the release of chemicals. The top brass called an emergency meeting. They decided to send a locomotive to the tracks to stop the train immediately. If nothing else, there will be an accident soon. An old man with 300 years of driving experience risks his life to go on the mission, but with the huge inertia of 333 miles per hour, the little locomotive is not enough to fight it. Soon the train driven by the uncle overturned. The train captain, who was about to retire after a lifetime of hard work, went to heaven in a huge explosion. The plan of the executives ended in failure. They were going to use the previous plan of the dispatch office. A large number of derailment devices were laid in front of the town where the train was about to arrive. The FBI saw this and rushed to evacuate the town. Once everything was in place, they waited quietly for the train to arrive. But what they didn't expect was, a train appeared in front of them. It was Jack, the veteran driver, and Bob, who was on his first day of work. And by the time he learned of the runaway train, the train they were driving and the runaway train were less than 8 miles apart. Fortunately, there was a track change line in the middle. Jack reacted quickly and cut in. The two of them were able to escape, but because the train was too long, the last car was still smashed to pieces. However, in the moment of passing by, Jack noticed the connector of the train. He suddenly thought of a good idea. Today the whole city put down their work. They are collectively concerned about the same thing, because it's a matter of life and death for the entire city, whether we can stop this train full of nuclear bombs. The key is at stake. Jack immediately dropped all the cars and backed up to catch it. He tries to slow the train down by hooking the front of his car to its tail, but the company's executives won't allow it, because the derailment device was already in place. No need for them to be heroes. Jack didn't think it could stop a 100-ton train. If the plan fails again, the train will derail and explode in the next city. A disaster of untold proportions. But just as he finished, the train arrived in front of the derailment device, and Jack's guess was right. The derailment device could do nothing to stop it. Now we can only hope for Jack and Bob. The train was moving at full speed, with only one front end open. The two of them quickly caught up, Jack driving, Bob operating, and the first docking did not succeed, but they did not give up. They immediately tried a second docking. Luckily, this time it was successful, but just as they were locking the connector, Bob was suddenly injured, but time was running out. The train was less than 7 miles from the next city. What's even scarier is that you can't go faster than 40 mph on the curve ahead, because underneath the curve is a fuel storage tank. If the train overturned, the consequences were unthinkable. Jack's tires are being dragged around in flames. At the last minute, Bob had a great idea. He turned on the brakes on each car of the train. He could force it to slow down. Jack quickly did what he told him to do. Soon after, the speed of the train was finally reduced, but it was still going too fast. There was a curve ahead. This time we can only leave it to fate. Luckily, the train was tilted but not overturned. They made it through the curve. If nothing else, There will be an accident soon. The brake system collapsed due to the overheating of the brake discs. The train starts to speed up again. Jack tried to run into the cab to take control, but he couldn't jump over. Suddenly a small car jumps out of the way. He told Bob to jump into the rear car to chase the train's caboose. Bob had the courage to see the opportunity. Finally the train, which had been running wildly on the main road for more than 3 hours, stopped in its tracks. A catastrophe was over, and the city returned to its former prosperity. The simplest sense of justice and responsibility in these people. It's not just a crazy train that shines through. Thank you for watching. Follow me and I'll show you a good movie.